way towards the finish of this stage into Pontarlier. We've been here 5 times in the past. 1985 was the last time here when Sean Kelly went on that year in 1985 to get one of his green jerseys, 4 green jerseys in the Tour de France, and that's the last time here, 1985, and the field now splashing its way towards the finish, and certainly a split here. You can see down the road, even the breakaways, which are 6 riders at one time, have begin to split up 2, and the other riders here begin to pull them back one by one. So it looks like Giron's gone back in again. It's now been split, got back again, then away they go again. So the split at one time just down the road was Vogt of Benesto went away with Canavan, and then he was joined by Turpin, Durand, De Groot and Gonzalez, and it now looks like they're going, and Durand is going yet again down the outside. He goes down, passes everybody right on the far side. This is typically Durand tactics, while keeping his cool is in the man in the green jersey, Stuart O'Grady. And just here, we're now hearing some information from the peloton, by the way, so they must be able to get back into radio contact. They're saying that the Maillot Jaune has gone to the back of the peloton. Well, that's Jens Voigt, who's now lost it to his teammate there in the green jersey, O'Grady, who's just prizing himself off the frontier, and the attacks are coming thick and fast. How do you read O'Grady's tactics, Sean? Is he just going to ride in with this one and without really pressing himself too much? Because they're jumping around, and he seems to be sort of following the wheels. Is that right?
Yes, well, O'Grady is going to be a map man, that's sure. He's going for the yellow jersey. They know that he's the best in the classement, and also for the sprint he's dangerous. So he's marked on the double, and they're not going to do a lot for him. He's going to have to do a lot of riding and to try and keep this group together. But it's going to be very, very difficult when you have three guys from Rabobank, and we see that they were away Waters, and the growth was in that 6-man group, and immediately when they came back, it was Decker who attacked with Knaven, I think, and we see Durand who went off on his own there, but he's been pulled in back by the group of O'Grady at the moment.
So coming in towards Pontarlier, I said 1985 the last time we had a finish here. Before that, you can go back to the early days of the Tour de France, and the first time that the race came here was in 1927 when they came into here, and a rider called Benoit got it. That was the year, by the way, that the Tour de France virtually came of age. They had 24 stages on the race that year in 1927. But do bear in mind, as we're going to do about 3,400 kilometres as O'Grady starts to go down the road here, that in those days, 1927, 24 stages, we're going to walk by 21 this stage, they did 5,398 kilometres. This year's race will be 3,400 and a bit kilometres. So in 24 stages, that's what they did. And if so, that's an awful long way. One of the longest stages was 360 kilometres in length. So it'll talk about 240 miles, and in fact they'd start between midnight and 9 o'clock in the morning in 1927 on the Tour de France, when they were, say, coming into Pontarlier for the first time. And if you think, gosh, that's a lot. It was the first year, by the way, that they went and had 20 odd stages. Before that, between about 1910 and 1927, barring the time for the First World War, they were only going between 13, 14, 15 stages. But in the early days in the Tour de France, this is a bit of background for people who may be listening to the first time. We've got 24 seconds, by the way, the gap for the first 2 riders at the moment out there down the road. And therefore in 1903, background information, because we'll pick out the race on your screens now in just a moment. Just listen to it. They actually did, in 1903, they did this enormous distance around the course. It was something like 2,400 kilometres. Yeah, 2,428 kilometres in only 6 stages. So only 6 stages to do that distance, and that was an amazing performance, because 6-4 to 24, that's 400 kilometres, that's 250 miles was the average of the race distance at that particular time. The longest day is from Paris to Lyon. If you look on your map, see where Paris and Lyon is, that was 468 kilometres of the distance there. That's again about 250 odd miles that they did on that particular day. So imagine those old days with the unmade roads and the bicycles with great big fat tyres and single speed gears, and the riders riding through the night and through the early hours of the morning to get that first Tour de France underway. You're now looking at the modern Tour de France. You're looking at this, the 88th Tour de France. They've got 20 kilometres to go in toward the finish to see if we're going to have a sprint finish. Certainly one thing we do know, the man in the green jersey just easing himself at the saddle fourth in the front there. O'Grady is now riding into definitely the green jersey on the points jersey competition and the yellow jersey in the overall classification. The nearest man to him in this breakaway group at the moment, Francois Simon, is at 8 minutes and 8 minutes and 27 seconds down on the yellow jersey as at this morning. Jens Voigt, who also rides for Crédit Agricole, so he'll be happy for his mate Stuart O'Grady to take that jersey off him, and for Simon to get the jersey he has to get away from O'Grady by over 4 minutes. That's not going to happen now, and it looks like O'Grady is going to have a smile from ear to ear tonight, and certainly he's had so much success so far in this Tour de France that the parties I think will start at about 2 o'clock in the morning in Adelaide in South Australia, with another great day for the battling Aussie. But these are the two riders now getting away off the front, and again the Rabobank team here being able to fire yes another man off to see if he can go away, and there they are then trying to get away. Gonzalez it is at the moment, and the Rabobank rider just ahead of the main field, or leader, sorry. Now then, well inside the final 20 kilometres, and yet another two riders with the ever-present Benesto rider going through as well, and he's not doing any other work at all. Sean, shouldn't he come through? I mean, there are three of them.
Yes, well, this is the second group on the road, David. There's another group ahead. Decker and Canavan are further up the road. They have 24 seconds of gap on that breakaway of O'Grady. But now Gonzalez has attacked, and he has Mac Waters in his wheel, and Waters is not going to work because he has, of course, Decker up the road. So there's two groups of two riders, and then the rest of the group containing O'Grady. And we're inside the 20 kilometres, as you said, and the 24 seconds advantage for Decker Canavan. But the bunch is still at 32 minutes.
Thank you, Sean, for waking me up. Actually, reading all these statistics and trying to keep up with all the paper we got here, just making apologies for putting my foot in the mouth yet again. That's it then. That you can see now, poursuivant. That's said they're chasing after them. And I had an email from somebody who's trying to understand all the different. He said to me it was Jim Cocker, no relation to Joe Cocker, I suppose. He said, how many riders constitute tête de la course? And when do the tête de la course become a peloton? And when are the poursuivants? What is a poursuivant? And do they have one if there are first and second pelotons going anyway? Bit complicated, I think, that one, Sean. But tête de la course is, it can be any number, can't it? It can be two riders, or it can be the peloton. Tête de la course is the head of the race, isn't it? Yes, tête de la course, yes. So that's very, very clear. When did tête de la course be the peloton? Well, it couldn't it? You could have the riders at the front. So if the peloton's complete, and the two riders or three riders at the front, it's tête de la course, isn't it? Yes, when the bunch is together and there's nobody away, of course, that's the tête de la course. Right, now poursuivants, we've just seen poursuivants come up. Well, we've now got to do two poursuivants going after these two leaders. So these will be tête de la course. The poursuivants are the one behind that. And I suppose what's left of this breakaway group, you would just call it, it's not a peloton, is it? No, it's the New Zealand group, poursuivant. Right, so it's the second pursuing group. Yes. Right, you got that back there, Mr. Jim Cocker? Right, and if we go back, there's going to be another third lot. The main peloton is further back, isn't it? That contains the yellow jersey and all the big boys. That's going to be the main peloton, isn't it? Yes, that of course would be the peloton. And we could, on a bad day, have the bus behind that, couldn't we? Yes, well then it's called the bus behind as well. So they call really in French they call it the gruppetto. We also call it the bus in some terms, because that's the bus driver keeps an eye on the time to make sure they stay inside the time limit. It normally happens in the big mountain. You'll certainly see it on the Alpe d'Huez. There'll be a group at the back containing all the sprinters who will just drag themselves up the Alpe d'Huez, and they have to stay inside the time limit as we go now across the final sprint of the day. So Canavan going through at the moment, and the two chasers after them. That's the poursuivant for you. And going into this back end of the race now, into Pontarlier, we've got 16.5 kilometres to go. That is just 10 miles left. Now then, Sean, 10 miles to go. This is going to be, well, see, how do you see? Every time I ask him, ladies and gentlemen, back at home, dear viewer, how things go, usually the last 10 miles or so can sum it up absolutely to a nicety, but we've got 2 here, 2 behind, and the main pack. Is there any reason for this to change at the moment? Because it looks like they're drifting off the front, or that back group now, some 10 riders going to get together, or are they going to say that's it?
Well, I think it's going to be difficult for the 10 riders, and there's a lot of the riders looking at O'Grady, of course, because he's going for the going to take the yellow jersey. He's the marked rider, and with two from Rabobank up here, I think it will be difficult for the rest of the group to catch those 4. There is a possibility that Gonzalez and Waters can come up to Decker and Carnarvon and make it a 4-man group.
Well, there we are. Carnarvon is riding in the lightish grey colours for the Domo Farm Freaks, and Decker in the orange and the white and the blue for the Rabobank team. So these are the 2 riders just there went through the sprint. And Decker, well, they call him Triple Decker back in Great Britain, with winning 3 stages last year in the Tour de France, and now he's looking to try and get this one too as well. This is a determined chase going on, with Gonzalez having to do all the work then, and he's certainly going to try and get across to there, but that'll mean 2 of the Rabobanks against 2 of the 2 independent other riders, Sean. So it must be playing into Rabobank's hands.
Yes, it certainly is a 4-man group and 2 from the same team. It's the perfect situation to win, and I'm surprised that Waters is not giving some help to Gonzalez, because if they get up there with 4 men and they pull together for a while, they could pull out the advantage, and it would make it pretty sure that they would not be pulled in by the group of O'Grady, the rest of the breakaway companions. So, but Waters is not prepared to do any work. He's just sitting on Gonzalez and leave him do all the work.
Would there be any reluctance for that group of 10 riders behind to go up hard because of Simon and O'Grady, who are pretty quick in the finish?
Well, that's it. As I said earlier on, before they started attacking, it was plain to be seen they would be attacks, because with Simon and O'Grady there, these riders were not going to carry him to the finish, because they knew they'd be beaten if it came to a sprint finish.
Of the Paris-Roubaix, and well, Sean Kelly, past winner of that race too as well. He's watching with bated breath to see the outcome of this one, because Carnarvon, you see how he's riding here, so determined. And again with Decker here, this is really the sort of territory that the Dutch and the Belgians are used to, isn't it, Sean? And so I'm not saying they're revelling in it right now, but how is it that they get that determination to do these rides like this under these terrible conditions? Is it just the upbringing, or what?
Well, I think they're used to these conditions in Holland, Belgium. You get a lot of this weather, but of course the day also suits. The parcours wasn't like yesterday; it didn't have as many mountain climbs, so they can ride all these sort of terrain very well. And the weather, of course, they can perform well. It doesn't affect them as much as it affects some of the Spanish riders who are used to a very warm climate.
Well, there we are. More statistics from Mike Smith, sitting in the dry in Paris.
I'm very thankful to be sitting in the dry, I can tell you, looking at these pictures, David. We've mentioned this once earlier. I think that Pedersen was the last winner in Pontarlier, Jürgen Pedersen, one of the Pedersen brothers, I seem to recall. There were 4 of them, Augusta and 2 others, forgive me if I can't remember their Christian names. Willie Teerlink, he was a good little sprinter, and Magnier back in 1928 and Benoit in 27. So this is the 5th time that we've been into Pontarlier, and I just reiterate what I said earlier. Pedersen, one of 4 brothers, they won the 100-kilometre team time trial once some years ago, all 4 brothers. Can Simon, he's not up with the leaders at the moment, can he get back up to them and complete the nat hand of stage winners in the Simon family? It's looking a little bit doubtful now, unless the remnants of this league group can get back up to the 4 escapees.
Well, nasty conditions still as they're coming toward the finish of the stage today. Who's going to add their name to that list then? Long time back since we had a stage finish here. And also, in fact, the race has been here 5 times. There was a start of the Tour de France, I think, if my memory serves me correctly, in Pontarlier. And it's a town which, these cold conditions here, which will dive into the tent just down the road there shortly to warm up, because we're getting a bit chilly too as well. It's a town well known for its liquid refreshment, and rather strong stuff there is too, if you can stake it, because this is where the absinthe came from over the years, the centre of that, but not for the bike riders, just to warm up the press who are probably right now feeling very chilly, because on those motorbikes there are a load of photographers who've been taking pictures for you. There are journalists out there who are reporting on the radio what's going on. Just bear thought then, not only for the riders here today, but the people who go with this race, particularly those on the motorcycles, because just sitting on the bikes, it eventually all works its way through. However much your overalls are sort of to stop the rain coming through, it sort of dribbles down the back of your neck, and eventually I think it does get to somehow. And also the police outrider, you see them down there clearing the way, although the spectators aren't massed out today because the conditions are pretty horrible, but they have come out, you can see, in sympathetic round of applause. Opposite us in our commentary point here, there's some spectators have been here for the last 3.5 hours now, and they're soaked to the skin, just like the riders are here, but the riders, not so many clothes on as our spectators have got, are certainly very cold and very damp. There's, I say, photographers taking their pictures, the motorcycle riders round about. It has been, Sean, to my mind, one of the nastiest tours for some years. Can you remember one like this when you were riding, or even since then? Because we had day in, day out. I think we had a nice sunny day on the Friday before the race started on Saturday. And on the Saturday, it drizzled down, and one or two riders, including Britain's David Miller, crashed in the conditions. And it doesn't seem, we had a sort of half day when it's been sun shining, but it's got worse and worse and worse. And we're going further and further south.
Yes, it's been a very bad tour. I remember one year we started in Frankfurt, and we got very bad weather. We came down through Belgium. We got a lot of the first week very, very bad. I think we got about 8 or 10 days which was rain, a lot of rain. But I think since that, this year's one of the worst years we've seen with the weather conditions.
And the lads still splashing their way to the finish in Pontaillet. Now, looks like what you said is going to happen, Sean, because these two are split here, this chase group. Volta has gone across, and Lachey is Gonzalez, and he's looking back again. Or is he going to wait for him?
Well, no, he thought he would get across on his own. He would leave Gonzalez behind, but it didn't work out. So when Gonzalez was coming back at him, Waters decided to stop, and now Gonzalez has gone by him. But I think Waters will get back into his wheel. He doesn't want to bring Gonzalez up to the group, because then they have a 4-man group, so it's really 2 against 2. And if they decide the other 2 decide to work against the 2 Rabobank guys, well then they could have a problem win this stage. So he wants to be sure. With Decker off the road at Carnarvon, he seems to be more happy that Decker could take the stage.
So the gap has certainly come down now between those 2 breakaways inside the 10 kilometre go towards the finish, and so Decker and Carnarvon, Gonzalez and Volta have been having their own little time trial along here, and the gap is opening up back to the main survivors of this 14-man group. 10 of them still behind, with Stuart O'Grady in the green jersey. Must have thought it's his lucky day today. I wonder if it's near his birthday, because he couldn't have a better birthday present than riding in with this massive advance over the rest of the field. So Stuart O'Grady, just looking down here, he was born the 6th of August 1973, Adelaide, South Australia, and of course many of you know he was in the team that won the team pursuit for Australia, the Australian team pursuit squad at Hammer in Norway. He went on to be an Australian champion too, and again the team pursuit, he was part of that lot in 1995 that won the World Championship in Bogota too. And Stewie, back in that main group, won the professional tour of Great Britain in 1998. He then went on to get the yellow jersey in the Tour de France just for a couple of days. That really, I think, got his tail up, being the Australian, being a kangaroo. But in Australia, he has a split season. He's twice been a winner of the Tour Down Under in South Australia. Once he was second. He has to ride, as Stewie does, into the season in Australia, which is across the November, December, January period. Then he comes back to Europe, has a bit of a breather, and then comes back in again to races like the Tour de France. I suppose that's why he probably hasn't done quite so well in the one-day classics in the spring, because of the way in which he rides down in Australia. But he's enlivened this race so far as Stewie, when he took over the yellow jersey earlier on in this race, and his team, the Credit Agricole team, won the team time trial too. They really have dominated this race so far, although now we're beginning to see other riders come through who were no great threat to the overall classifications. They slipped the net, but the people up there just forgot, I suppose, that O'Grady would be a threat, and now he's coming in that group of 10. We haven't gone back with our cameras to pick up O'Grady. We're just looking at the battle between these two riders on your screen now. Carnarvon out there going along and trying to set the scene up together with Decker, and being chased down by Gonzalez and Volters. Is there any reason that that Volters shouldn't sort of ease back to let Decker come up to him, Sean?
Oh, Decker ease back to let Waters come up. No, I don't think Decker, maybe he's not aware that Waters is chasing behind with Gonzalez, but it's really Waters who should do the work, which he should ride through with Gonzalez and come back to this group, because then they have two men of the four-man group in the lead, and they could still pull off this stage very, very, very easily. But he's allowing Gonzalez to do all the work, and he's riding very, very strong, because he's pulling these two guys back all on his own. But when he does come back, we will see Waters attacking immediately, because he's going to the other two have rode very hard, Decker and Carnarvon. Of course, Gonzalez have rode very hard to pull them back, so we will see Waters attacking, I think, immediately when they come back to join the two leaders. And
what about back in the Groot in the main bunch? I suppose he's just going to be hoping to be towed up with the chasers.
Well, in the group of O'Grady, they're at a minute at the moment, down on these on the two leaders of Decker and Carnarvon. So I don't think they will. There's no way they're going to come back now. We're inside around the 7 or 8 kilometres before the finish. So it's going to be between those two, and the bunch is still around the 32-minute mark. So they haven't started up enormously as yet. They're just riding along. There's a few teams riding in the front, but they don't seem to be riding at 100%.
Well, there we are then. They're now 4 men in the lead. The two riders from Rabobank, one with the green pants is Gonzalez from the Calmay team. And yeah, you're quite right. There he goes, off down the road. So Volters held the yellow jersey in the stage. He got into Anvers, Antwerp, and now he's going off again to get a stage victory. He got the stage victory and then went on the next day into Serang. He lost the jersey that day, but he went through his home territory, through his hometown, wearing the yellow jersey, the stage victor the day before. Now he's trying to get this one too as well. So these 4 men now over a minute ahead of the other 10 riders who were in that breakaway from the 5th kilometre. Attacks coming thick and fast. Way off he goes. Carnarvon, he rode hard, didn't he, in the Paris-Roubaix this Sean? I mean, how would you rate that ride? And then look at his chances now.
Well, he's certainly had a very good beginning of season, winning Paris-Roubaix. That's made his season. If he doesn't manage to win another race for this year, well, his season is still good, because a win in Paris-Roubaix is so important. But he's a very good rider, and we see him here now. I think he's a very good chance of winning the stage here. Although against the Rabobank, two riders up there, they should be able to manage it. But I would be concerned about Gonzalez, because I think in the sprint he could pull a fast one and beat them all in the sprint. Well,
they're all taking in turns to attack the Rabobanks, and they attack them as well. This is the run in to the finish today at Pontarlier. A swift turn round here, a bit of sharp right and extreme bit left. It's rather nasty on the wet conditions, but with 4 ride they ought to be able to stay upright, and they come in through round that last kilometre with that sharp right hand around a big rond point, around a big island. Not too bad, but if they get too enthusiastic with 4 kilometres to go, then they could come down. But somehow I think these riders, not so much Gonzalez, Sean, but the other lads here, especially the Belgians and the Dutch, it shouldn't present too much a problem. What do you think going around those bends on these wet conditions?
Well, the wet conditions can always create a problem, depending how fast you try to go. And if you're away on your own, for example, if a guy attack going into the last 2 kilometres and he's just 100 metres ahead of some of these guys, well, then you take all the risk risk, and when you go to the limit and you take risk, well then there's always the danger of coming down on the wet corners, because you never know, there could be just some oil on one of the corners, and you're in it on top of it before you know it, and you go down so quickly. There's nothing you can do.
And we're back then with what's left of that original 14-man group. It was 15 until Wunderkraft punctured from the Telecom team, went back in to join up with Armstrong and Ulrich, the two top players. Armstrong last year's victor with the US Postal team, still the stalking cats, the Telecom team and Armstrong's US Postal team. Wunderkraft went back after puncture to be alongside and look after the interests of Ulrich. The gaps opened up all the way through, and we've heard no more news about it coming down, have we, Sean, on the radio? Because the last time it was still over 30 minutes. Have you heard anything about it coming down?
Well, the last time check we had was 32 minutes.
32. And as that's 30 minutes back to the main group, coming into today's stage, had a lead about 1 minute 53 seconds on Armstrong. So whatever you see come up on the screen, that'll be added to the gap here. So that is quite a comfortable platform at the moment. Do bear in mind, though, on Tuesday we do go up the Alpe d'Huez, and that's a climb of something like it's about 40 minutes to climb the Alpe d'Huez. Do you know, Sean, roughly from bottom to top?
No, I think it's a bit more than that, actually, David. I'm not quite sure of the exact time, but I would reckon it's a bit more. It's around 13 kilometers of a climb, so I'm not sure, but I would reckon a bit over 40 minutes.
So that's agony time, isn't it? Oh, in fact, Stephen Rose said he lost 20 minutes on the climb once, so I suppose that just shows it how long it is to go up Well, the conditions are, I was wondering just what it was going to be like, and then watch again here. Back end goes, he straightens it, he brings it back again. That is bike handling at its best, and my goodness, that must have made his heart double in beats to maybe 180 to 200 beats suddenly, but the conditions are very, very dicey indeed. Fortunately, well, in the last kilometre, we've got about 500-600 metres of straight line, and it's got to go yet again. The trouble, you see those white zebra crossings, that's where the trouble can also be, because the white surface goes just like a skating rink, and also sometimes on the bends you get a little bit of diesel, it spills out of an overfilled car or lorry, and that makes matters even worse again.
And Gonzalez is very active. He's doing a lot of work here against the two Rabobank riders. He's pulling them back, and every time they attack, he seems to be very, very strong. So if it comes down to the sprint of the foreman, I think Gonzalez could be the danger man.
Not normal for the Spaniards to be seen here under these conditions at this particular time, is it, Sean? How do you rate his chances then? You're obviously picking him quite well. You seem to be handling his bike quite well.
Yeah, he's a good bike handler. I think he's quite fast in the sprint. And now we see Decker go in the attack, and Gonzalez again, he goes after him. So he's doing an enormous amount of work. He's pulling back the guys as they attack. He's compared to Caernarfon is he's just following the wheels here, and he hasn't been doing as much as Gonzalez to pull back the Rabo bank riders when they attack.
There we are then, coming up to 1 kilometre to go. They've got another right-hander. When they come to an island further on down, they'll have plenty of room to go round, I think. So taking it in terms of zip off down here. Sean, is that when the Rabanks go, is it just they do it automatically, or do they know which one's going to take it in turn? It just happens so when he gets caught, the next one goes. Any sort of nodding between, like your turn, my turn, or is it just automatic? You go, we get caught, I go.
Yeah, it's automatic. You see when there's a Rabobank rider away and somebody chases them, takes them down, you see immediately then the other ones attack immediately, and that's what you've got to do. And Gonzalez has been covering him down very well, and he seems to be the strongest of the four. Caernarfon, of course, he hasn't been showing his hand a lot, so he could create the surprise.
Sean, you take us through the sprint, because I can see on the edge of the seat here now.
Well, I think the sprint, we will see somebody coming from the rear here now. We will see Decker. He will just wait behind, and he will try and surprise them by coming from behind. But I think Gonzalez is very, very alert, and he's going to be hard to beat here.
Well, they're winding up now. The flags are waving, and the Belgians will be holding their breath. The Danes likewise, but he's pulled back now. It looks like suddenly Bolt's had enough and getting Decker go for this one. But no, Gonzalez is still going. Gonzalez is going, and as Sean said, Gonzalez there. Gets that one, and no, did Decker go for it?
Yes,
did Decker get it?
Yes. Well, Gonzalez, he took the front. He started to lead out a bit too early, and it was a long ways out. And I think he tired in the last number of meters, and Decker overcame him.
Well, the group coming in here now contains O'Grady. We had 4 riders come in already in the sprint today, but that was a brilliant, well-timed gallop. It looked like on the far side that Gonzalez had been tipped by Sean that was going to get it, but he just seemed to go a bit too soon. We'll watch the slow motion replay of that one, but the question is now the gap back between these riders here and the group coming in at the moment, because it's going to be important then for Decker. Then won 3 stages in the Tour de France last year, so now he's got one here. In fact, Rabank must be very pleased. They got voters getting that stage into Antwerp and then taking the yellow jersey. Now they've got another stage here and coming through. Bear in mind we've got 4 riders already finished, and the points then for the green points jersey go down to 15th spot. So Grady is certainly going to get some points in the sprint coming up now. Jackie Durand starts to wind up from the back to try and catch them napping. There's a lot of money at stake as well in the Tour de France, and so Jackie's off down there as ever, prepared to have a go. O'Grady, I think Sean would just be prepared to stay out of trouble. What do you think?
Well, yes, he's got to stay out of trouble, of course, but Jackie Durand, we see him here, he attacked from behind, and the riders are looking at each other. As we say, everybody looks at each other and he gets the gap, and I think he will go on to take the 5th place. But O'Grady, of course, he has to try and stay up as to the front as much as possible and try and mark some points, but also not to take any great major risk.
Well, he's certainly going to ride into the yellow jersey, and he's just 1, 2, 3 from the front of this one, so that's going to be 5th spot coming up for Durand, I think, or is he going to get caught? He's always prepared to have a go, Jackie Durand, and in front of the French audience here, looks like he's riding in. Is he going to get 4th, or is he 5th, or is he going to get overtaken coming down? They're starting to wind it up now after Jackie Durand, who keeps looking under his arm to see where they're coming from, and he's slowing visibly here, and he's probably not going to get 5th place. The gap then opening up on this screen, you can see it here, and so it's all comes to O'Grady. O'Grady's timed it to perfection. It looks like he's going to get to 5th spot then, O'Grady, and his time 2:31 down, but O'Grady now taking 5th spot, and with that he will get 12 points in the competition for the green jersey. Now he's certainly got the green jersey. He had 90 points to begin with this morning, added 4 just down the road, then another 10 points there, makes him 104 according to my quick calculation for O'Grady. The clock stopped for O'Grady, I stopped the clock. He was 2:31 down at that particular point. The last time check we had, it was about 32 minutes back to the main group, and it may well be staying that way because of the slippy surface coming into there, so he could well be going into the leader's jersey with about a half an hour advantage over the rest of the riders. And bearing in mind this morning he was on general classification in 3rd spot, so he's going to have a good platform on which to ride up the Alpe d'Huez and the mountain time trial the day after.
So Eric Decker's 4th Tour de France stage victory, his first in this edition, of course, remember, triple Decker of 12 months ago, and his 5th win of this year of 2001. And it was Mark Wouters we caught up with just after the finish.
The tactic in the end of the stage was you
don't talk together, but we are professionals, and Erik and me, he gives me the top in Antwerp, and now that is my answer on his work in Antwerp.
Thank you, Erik.
So he helped me, I helped him. Seems fair to me. Remember Mark Wouters, the stage winner in Antwerp stage 2. Pascal Chanteur was originally with that break. Sadly, he got dropped off the back last of the breakaway to cross the line, but even he was still 26 minutes ahead of the peloton. And here is the peloton. Well over 150 riders there. Here we see them with just 25 kilometres to go. Now we see them on the run-in, coming into the finish well over half an hour behind. Eric Zabel still fighting for vital points here, but he found himself just outdone on the line. It was Robert Hunter, actually. I thought it was Kirsipur at first, but difficult to tell when they're dressed like that. Robert Hunter, the young South African from Lamprey, coming in just ahead of Eric Zabel and Matteo Frutti, followed by Gutierrez, Capella and Auger. But the honours going to the Rabobank team and Eric Dekker in particular. The first break, he said, was from Ludo Dirksens. Now, he invited me yesterday to go in a break with him, and I said to him, not crazy to do that, because all day we'd have the wind in our faces. But today I reacted immediately with Canavan, and we just couldn't catch him up at first. Wouters took over the lead, and at the same time we heard there'd been a crash behind us in the peloton. I believe Lance Armstrong was close to it, I'm not sure. Anyway, the peloton was totally in pieces, so I protected the breakaway of Wouters, and then suddenly we found there were 15 of us in the lead. Vinokurov was with us, and I prayed, but fortunately for us, he got a puncture half a minute later, and that made a difference. It was lucky for us, because Vinokurov's a classy rider. The big teams wouldn't have let him go. You had to do another break then later, because there were too many sprinters in the group. Well, yeah, but it was good that there were so many sprinters, because then I knew it would break up and it wouldn't be a big bunch sprint amongst the leading group at the finish. Well, he timed it right, didn't he? Dekker and Wouters got it absolutely spot on. Dekker, Gonzalez, Canavan and Wouters then sprinting it out at the end. But Stuart O'Grady coming in fifth, just a couple of minutes or so behind those four lads, and he took over the yellow jersey in commanding way. Simon now lies second behind him at 4 minutes and 32 seconds, and then look at that massive gap to Groot, 21 minutes behind. O'Grady then in an incredible position.
The plan was just to make, just to follow the breakaway. We've got the yellow jersey in the team, so it was just to defend, make sure we had a rider represented, and afterwards go for the green jersey. But it's been a long, hard day, very, very cold, but it's worked out.
Well, it certainly has worked out for him, and there's confirmation of the points competition. As I said, that first sprint was enough to put him in green, but then, of course, he got more points than Eric Zabel when he got to the finish. Andrei Kivilev was one of the strong men in that break. He said for Cofidis, I was waiting for this for a week. You've got to try in this tour. Some days ago I lost 18 minutes on one stage, but the tour's not finished. It's 3 weeks, not just 1 or 2 days, and I always thought my chance might come. Were you aware that you'd done something really special today, this record breakaway? Well, yes, but I must be honest, I've been waiting for something like this for 4 or 5 days now. But surely the big gap was a surprise. Well, he said, I've known for a couple of days that the peloton might crack, and that's just the way that it happened today. Well, he was another of the big gainers, moving up to 4th place on overall classification, albeit 22 minutes behind Stuart O'Grady. King of the Mountains, not much change there, of course. Algon already with more points on his plate than he needed to defend today, but Gilon Jalabert in 2nd place. Well, stage 9 sees the race going further south from Pontellier to a regular on the Tour de France schedule, Aix-les-Bains, a distance of 185 kilometres, and of course it's the last stage before the Alps. 3 categorised climbs, but only comparatively minor ones, 2 of them 3rd category and 1 of them 4th category. We turned our attentions to one of the officials of the organisation, Jean-Francois Péchot, who said, I think that before Paris we're going to have more stages like the one we've just seen, because there are riders who still want to win a stage, who want to climb up the general classification, and who've got nothing to lose really and everything to win in that sort of operation. I think it'll be difficult to have a mass sprint before the end of the tour, maybe on the Champs-Élysées.
He reckons he has a chance to take the jersey here, and he said this morning, well, he climbs better than O'Grady, and but he said with O'Grady the yellow jersey, it might change things, but also his team leader or team manager Jean-René Bernardeau, he's very confident he will take the jersey over the next couple of days, so he's going to be hanging in there, and he's going to fight on, limit his losses on the guys further back in the general, but he has a lot of advantage over him. The next rider rider, the third rider, the growth, of course, is going to be no problem. But Kovalev have a long ways to go to catch up on Simon. So I think we will see Simon if he doesn't take the jersey tomorrow. I think we will see him in the next couple of days in the yellow jersey.
Well, he's got the time trial after that one. Just put you the picture tomorrow about the Alpe d'Huez as we still see our three leaders pressing on there, McGee, Ivanov and Echeverria. Remind us, Sean, where they went away, because they seem to be out an awful long time now. And what was it, about 40 kilometres out from the start? I know it rather quickly to begin with.
Yes.
And they certainly did a very fast start. 50 kilometres in the first hour, so over 30 miles an hour.
Well, yeah, the first attacks, actually, there was a number of attacks at the major one, the 36Ks. Before that, there was a number of them, but none of them succeeded. But there was one with then Bakker and Chavanel, and then when they were joined, McGee, Ivanov and Echeverria. So they've been away for a long time, and it seems now like that they just won't hold out to the finish, because a lot of riders come to the front to ride. We've seen some of the Telecom riders on the front there, and the Lamprey guys on the front. So all the sprinters must have came back to this leading group. So we're going to see a lot of the sprinters up there for this stage today.
And at the 20 kilometre mark, the gap then down to 2 minutes and 5 seconds. This is the leading riders in the orange coloured jersey, David Echeverria, twice a stage winner in the Tour de France last year. The gap now is down to 1 minute and 58 seconds. The crowd turning out here, all holiday makers enjoying themselves this delightful part of the world, as McGee now drives hard in the front then. That tremendous ride he did in the Olympics this year. He was so pleased then to take the bronze in Sydney. He'd also take a bronze in the Atlanta Olympics too as well. Great to pursue, and he's now having to put all his experience together here to pull on the more diminutive figure of David Echeverria, riding for the Escudero team. That's the Basque team here. Fassa Batola, the Russian rider. Twice he's been a Russian road champion, been time trial champion too of Russia. So we've got some very mixed bag of riders here. One from Australia, one from Russia, one from the Basque country up in Spain, and they're really pressing on now. The gap is coming down all the time. Better thought then for Britain's David Miller. He got shot off on the climbs further back. He's been fighting to get back into the fray. He started this morning last overall. He's still soldiering on, and the chances that his teammate Kovalev might get the yellow jersey. So not today, but tomorrow or the next day he'll be in there working for his team, as the train now looks as if it might well catch our breakaways. Mike.
Yes, David, as you mentioned earlier in your commentary, this is the 22nd time that the Tour de France in its history has been to Aix-les-Bains, and here on the screen you see the last 5 occasions. Sadly, we had the great drugs scandal in 1988, and the run to Aix-les-Bains was declared annulé, no result. But look at some good names there who've won in Aix-les-Bains, going back to 74, Eddy Merckx, Greg LeMond in 89, Dmitry Konishev, now near veteran status, the former world champion silver medalist. Sorry to remind you about that, Sean. He won in Aix-les-Bains in 1991, and Michael Bourget, the Dutch favourite, in 1996. So just before I hand back to you, David and Sean, just chew on this one for a moment. They just went through the village of Blois, and on my watch the time was 22 minutes past 4 Central European time. The fastest schedule in the Tour de France guidelines that they give to people like you and me said they should have been there if they were doing 43 kilometres an hour at 4:37. So they are 15 minutes ahead of even the organisers' fastest schedule. This is really fast racing.
Mike, you're quite right, and Sean may comment upon this, but it's virtually every day through this race, despite the fact sometimes we've been going into headwinds, we've been getting up ahead of schedule. And amazingly this morning, despite the terrible conditions of yesterday, they did 50 kilometres in the first hour. That's over 30 miles an hour. And you can see now the gap is 1:47 back, with the Telecom team started the chasing. Moreau was punctured, by the way. That's bad luck then for the French rider from the festivity. 4th last year, the Tour de France. Can't afford to lose time now. This is a dangerous moment, isn't it, Sean, to puncture when they're going in like this, eh? Nobody away from him as far as Ulrich and Armstrong are concerned.
No, certainly not. It's a dangerous time, because there's also a second group on the road there just behind this first part of the main bunch. So the chase is still on there. Everybody hasn't got back after the climb, but for Moreau it's a dangerous time, because he might not have a lot of teammates with him, and it could be a dangerous moment for him to try and get back with the Leaders, with the Armstrong and with Ulrich, of course.
Well, the first time we came to Aileban was in 1931, a vintage year, by the way, says he, for more reasons than one. And now they're coming in here to see who's going to get the victory. Just quickly again, if we're going to, in fact, we won't go off air very quickly, so I'll just say that we will be back again tomorrow for the outdoor stage. Book your tickets now, because that's going to be a cracking day where we've got 2 Oak category climbs before we get the finish. It's also an Oak category. That's an unbelievable set of climbs, 3 of them at the back end there. So we're in for a very interesting and exciting day again tomorrow. So the sprinters now are going to really want to show in front of the public this afternoon and on television that they're still in there with the shout. But believe you me, the battle between O'Grady and Zabel is going to rage as they come down into Aileban for the finish. Cohesive chase now to try and pull back our breakaway threesome up in front then, as McGee, who went away together with Ivanov and Echevarria, are hanging on now, just trying to get into Aileban to get the finish today. I well remember this town too when we were here, that last time that the actual registered hill, as Mike was saying earlier on, it was the problem in 1998 when the stage was annulled because of the problems that we'd had in the raids and so on going on the day before. But it was in 1996 that Bogart got the stage victory here. That was when we had a monsoon period. It's even worse than yesterday, but it only came down shortly towards the finish, like about 2 hours. It was wet water, and it fell out the sky. A great red light. It was monsoon period, and that was a day, unfortunately, I put petrol in a diesel car and ended up doing the commentary from a hotel. I remember it well. Anyway, we survived that one. We're here in the comfort of the finish line alongside the beautiful lake at Aileban, and we're going to have possibly a super. There goes the Festina team going back to collect Morrow, and this is going to take some catching, because what sort of speed would they be going at now, Sean?
Well, they're going, I would reckon they're going at 40 km per hour, and we see the Festina guys here. Morrow, he is Garcia, Casas and Perez, who's waited from, and there's another one who've arrived, so there's three for the team have waited from, but it's going to be hard. The gap is there's quite a big gap after opening there, so it's a dangerous moment for Morrow. He could lose some time here if he doesn't make it back to this group quickly.
Well, Morrow this morning started out 17th spot, 34 minutes and 43 seconds down. That's of no great significance, because many of the riders in front are not particularly good climbers, although Bobby Julik is lying in 12th spot, 33 minutes and 49 seconds down, so he's ahead of Christoph Morrow, and Morrow will be determined to get back, because he's a bit further ahead of Armstrong and Ulrich on the general classification, with O'Grady still in the yellow jersey and technically the green jersey too. Going into the sprints today, O'Grady has 116 points and Eric Zabel has 103 points, and there'll be at the end of the stage today, because it's a flattish stage, the following points at stake. You want to jot them down. Eric Decker, 35 points yesterday. That just shows you how he got the stage success yesterday and helped himself to a lot of points, but he's way down on the sprint competition in 12th spot. So in second spot then we'll get 30 points, in third spot 26 points, and in fourth spot 24 points, 22 points for fifth, and 20 points for sixth, and then so on. They drop down by 1 point per rider, so the seventh gets 19, the eighth gets 18, and so on. So the massive points there in the top 6 places, ranging from 35, 30, 26, 24, 22 and 20, so they come down suddenly from 30 to 35 and then down to 26. So O'Grady, who at the moment is with 116 points, and Zabel with 103, has a benefit of 13 points, does O'Grady, over Zabel. And if the big hitting sprinters manage to go around, would O'Grady really go hard, or would he just sort of follow Zabel? What would be your tactics, Sean? 4 times green jersey winner in the Tour de France. Where would you be now in relationship, say, to Zabel?
Well, I think for O'Grady, he'll just have to follow Zabel and finish as close as possible to him, and if it's possible, to finish ahead of him. But in a finish like this with Zabel, it's difficult for O'Grady because Zabel is the better sprinter. So he just have to keep his advantage and not lose any points to Zabel today, and hopefully in the other mountain stages, in the medium mountain stages, to take some more points from Zabel.
So pay into O'Grady's hands to allow these three to get away, or certainly not do any chasing run, because they got the major points ahead. They got the 35, the 30, and the 26 points. So if these three stay away, then it's going to certainly help him, isn't it?
Yes, well, that's what O'Grady would prefer best, for a group to be away, and the big amount of points are taken up before they arrive in, and Zabel doesn't have the opportunity to possibly win the stage here and take a lot of points back from O'Grady again today.
Now, is it also a psychological advantage, say that or a boost to Zabel if he managed to get up there and do it today? Because I've got the impression that Eric is like 93%. I saw him this morning and said hello and a quick chat to him. He looks very fit, but he didn't seem to be bubbling. I mean, he said, we've known him for years, all of us here, and it's nice to bump into. He's a very, very nice bloke, but I think somehow watching him in the race and watching him privately, he just seems to perhaps lack the zip. Is that because he hasn't got quite the form, or is because he's the only rider? I mean, Telecom are working for him now, but he isn't the number one, is he? Because Ulrich is the man they're riding for.
Yes, well, there's a lot of talk at the start of the tour that Zabel wasn't happy, and it was true. He wasn't happy because the riders selected in the team, they weren't the ones he would prefer, one or two different riders, but they built the team around Ulrich, and he came out and won 2 stages. In the first stage he won. He kind of went over the lines as to, almost saying, well, I'm still here and I can still win sprints, but I think he's form, and I said that a number of days ago. I don't think he's as strong as he was in other years, because on the medium mountain stages he has lost some time, and the day we had a lot of wins actually, when there was a lot of echelons, he lost time also, so I don't think he's as strong as he was previous years.
Well, there we are, still hanging on, this little group. You can see in the background the nice, I won't say rolling hills, they're a bit sharp in places. They've now got 10 kilometres to go towards the finish. 10 kilometres to go towards the finish. We'll get a good positive time check when we come through here. And on the front then O'Grady, mate from Australia, both of them rode together in the team pursuits, although McGee here on the screen was somewhat younger than O'Grady, but they spent a lot of time riding and training on that track in Adelaide. Beautiful track built by Ron Webb, who's built also the track in Manchester. So here McGee driving with Echevarria and Ivanov looking for the finish. And this is the main group. They're coming up towards the 10 kilometre point. Oh, it's nice entertainment, isn't it? You'd be surprised. Unfortunately, you don't get a chance to see what's going on the side of the road. We do when we drive ahead, the antics going on, the partying and what have you. And down the finishing straight, the publicity cavalcade has now gone through, entertaining the people and giving them all bits and pieces. And for some reason, they haven't got the time split on our screen. I must get my watch out now. Normally, it comes on the screen, but I've got a little tick-tock here, which I now have to have ready with me, because sometimes that goes on the blink. We should get officially on computer, but it's probably only about a minute now, and down the road goes Ivanov. Should they work together a bit longer, Sean, or is this move by Ivanov a good one?
No, I think it's it's a bit early for Ivanov to go away. I think the three need to pull together and ride together at 100%, because I think there's around the 50 seconds the gap, and with the group chasing, the bunch chasing, and a number of teams riding, it's going to be very difficult for them to stay away. I think if they kept on riding the three of them together, as I said, it's possible they would, but if they start attacking each other, I think they could be swallowed up here just in the end.
Well, the Russian Ivanov now on the attack for the Fassa Bartolo team, a team which has that crafty Mr. Ferrari looking after the team, and let's see how they go, because Ivanov now we're trying to get something for the Fassa Bartolo team. He's been from different teams. He started out with Lada, then went to TVM, then on to Farm Freaks, and now he's over here with the Fassa Bartolo team. Look at that flat back, the strong legs. This is a man who was the champion of Russia in the year 2000 and in 99, and he also won a stage way back in the Tour de l'Avenir in 96, but he first first turned pro. Even won some stage out in the Rapport Tour in South Africa. I mentioned South Africa here not just because he won a stage in the Rapport Tour, in fact 2 stages there in the Rapport Tour and a stage in the Tour de l'Avenir, because Sergej Ivanov going down the road, we're watching, I think, in the sprint, if they come back to him, another South African, or a South African, and that is Robert Hunter, because he's sprinting very well indeed yesterday, and he will looking for more points. Now you see coming through then the yellow jersey of Stuart O'Grady, who has also got the green points jersey. Technically that is his, but he's passed over the jersey just for publicity purposes to the man who's second on the classification, Eric Zabel, with 103 points. Stuart O'Grady's 116 points. At the end of the stage today, the top 3 placings are the most important. They'll get 35 points, 30 and 26 points for the top 3 in that order, and O'Grady will have to hope and wait that the work being done by his countryman McGee, who took away that braking group, including this man Ivanov and Echeverria, have done enough so they take the top 3 places. The race is really on now, and so Ivanov, a very strong man, comes from I can hardly pronounce it, a place called Chuvasky in Russia, been a pro since '96, looking for a stage victory today in the Tour de France. 46 seconds gap. Inside, 10 kilometres to go. Ivanov still trying to stay away. How on earth can he do it against the might of this chase, Sean?
Well, it's going to be very difficult. You know, coming down to the 40 seconds. He's got 10 seconds on the two previous breakaway companions, McGee and Echeverria.
Well, we're coming down into Aix-les-Bains, the spa town that has been well known to many holidaymakers and those looking for rest and relaxation. It's been a spa since Roman times now, and we have now got a Russian thundering in here to try and see if he can get the stage victory. 37 seconds it is then for Ivanov on his way into Aix-les-Bains and the finish today. Amazing performance by Ivanov, who's now gone away, and he's got 5 kilometres to go. Coming into the 10 kilometre mark of this 3-man group, originally out there together, was beginning to be reeled in by the main pack, and Ivanov decided they went through, then on towards the 8th and then 7 kilometre mark. It was time to say bye-bye to this man here, David Echeverria, and there is Brad McGee, who'll be driving the thing so hard indeed too. He slipped the net then, but really the peloton might still catch these 3 breakaways. This is the run in then. They've got coming in toward the finish. It twists and turns. There's a bit of a sort of whoopee one round here, and then another one here, a sharp one. Watch this one, because that's the last kilometre. But now as they come down here, it's a very, very straight, good run in to the finish, where a big crowd is gathering right alongside the lake, waiting to see who's going to get the stage victory today. An amazing sight here, isn't it, Sean? Look at the contrast in styles. The punchy Russian rider here, 4 kilometres to go. The little diddy chap from Echeverria, who's a mountain climber, and Brad McGee, who was a pursuiter. There's a great mixture, isn't it? And they work well, but what's the chances now? Come on. Well, we said they were going to get caught before, and I think, what do you think?
Yes, well, I'm not too sure if Ivanov is going to get caught. He's doing a fabulous ride here. He's holding the bunch off well, 37 seconds, and he's gone inside the 4 kilometre mark, so he could make it to the finish. And we see the rolling there. There's a few corners, so that will slow the bunch down a little bit. So he could just about make it.
Well, running in toward the finish alongside the Lac de Bourget in Aix-les-Bains, where there's been many people enjoying their summer holiday. Today it's more like summer than it has been for the last few days. Yesterday, well, you'd have thought you were actually going into midwinter. We had so much rain, it was so cold, and these riders you're seeing here took a long, long time to thaw out after the stage. But they've entertained us today with what is going to be a very, very fast stage. 3 kilometres to go. They did 60 kilometres and now 50 kilometres an hour in the first hour. That's just over 30 miles an hour. 50 kilometres in the first hour, and they're still coming in here way, way, way ahead of our scheduled time for the riders to finish in the town of Aix-les-Bains. This is the twists and turns that Sean was talking about. It's making it very difficult for the chase to come. Massive crowd have turned out. They've been on holiday and they've been very bedraggled in their tents with the bad weather we had so far, and now they're happy to come out in much more better conditions to cheer. To look at the number of people alongside the side of the road. This is again the Tour de France at its best. Just savour the moment. Sean, you've been expert at this. He's looking round. Would you do that, or would you just keep your eyes focused on the finish?
Well, yes, the best thing to do is just keep your head down and go for it. This moment, he's had a look around there, but not, he hasn't been looking around a lot. So that's the thing to do. Just look straight in front of you and give it 100%. And he certainly is, because he's holding off well. He's holding off the two guys 8 seconds to himself, and he's two previous breakaway companions, and the bunch is around the 35-second mark. So I think he can make it.
Well, the two behind are still pedalling like fury, but they just missed it when he launched himself off down the road. 2 kilometres, and it's 10 seconds to the two riders behind, and the gap is coming down behind, and it twists and turns. This is the bit which is to his advantage now, as Ivanov swinging round here, the Russian. Well, we've got to go back a long way into the Russian victory. I'm sure Mike Smith back in Paris will be flicking through his books, Mike, to see when the last Russian victory was. I presume it's got to be Konyshev at some particular point, but he looks like he's going to now go into the history books as well as yet another of the hard riders from behind the Iron Curtain. So many riders came over from behind what we used to call the Iron Curtain. There were hard men too. And when we think also Kivilev from Kazakhstan, who's now poised probably later on to take the yellow jersey. Look at Ulrich, who came from East Germany. Many top riders we've got now have had a good background riding for the national squads of those produced behind the Iron Curtain. Now the curtains come down. We're all enjoying our sport together, but the experience they had in training and education in bike racing and all the ways in which they were taught to ride over those years is now showing off in many of these riders. This is a determined effort now by the Russian rider, and it looks like he's got it for Fassa Bartolo, and undoubtedly Fassa Bartolo are inclined to suddenly pull off something that surprised everybody. It's only, I think, the second year this team's been together and has been put together by the wizard himself, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of elation in the Fassa Bartolo team, who aren't looking for overall victory on the general classification. They're looking for stages, and certainly now they're going to get one here then, as Ivanov comes down that finishing straight. A triumphant moment for him and for his team too as well, to get a victory here in Aix-les-Bains. There's no doubt about it that Giancarlo Ferretti and Alberto Volpi, the two experienced team managers, are going to say breathe a sigh of relief then, because they've got what they came out to do. Don't forget there's only 21 stages in the Tour de France, so 21 stages starting in the 21 teams and 21 stages. They're not all going to get one each, some are going to get more than one, and at the moment then Fassa Bartolo can breathe a sigh of relief, because this man going away early on in the race then has suddenly now come into Aix-les-Bains to get the victory on this stage of the Tour de France, all the way from Pontarlier to Aix-les-Bains, 185 kilometres, and he's been out there for most of that distance together with his compatriots coming down here with a big gallop coming from behind. It looks like Echeverry, in fact, he's going to take second, and Brad McGee third. That will certainly help O'Grady, but as we look now to see coming down the finishing straight, is O'Grady or no? Zabel looks like no. O'Grady is in yellow, and Zabel's coming through, but he's going to be beaten by Nazon, I think. Nazon was there, close behind him there was Zabel, and probably O'Grady. We'll watch the slow motion action replay of that one, but Sean, was that Nazon, or certainly one of the Bonjour riders just ahead of Zabel?
Yes, very close between Zabel and Nazon. I would reckon Nazon just got Zabel on the line. And so O'Grady was very close there. He's finished. He was third or fourth in the bunch sprint. So a good finish from O'Grady, because he's not going to lose many points against Zabel. So that's what he needed today.
Well, O'Grady will keep the yellow jersey, no doubt about that one. But if in fact Nazon got the fourth spot and the fifth one went to Zabel, Zabel would get 22 points. But if O'Grady was, I think, just one place behind him, O'Grady would get 20 points, which means that only 2 points were shaved off the lead in the green jersey competition, with O'Grady start this morning 13 points ahead of Eric Zabel. Looks like O'Grady not only keeps the yellow jersey but also the green points jersey.
So yet another fascinating stage on the road eventually to the Champs-Élysées in Paris on July the 29th. The road from Pontarlier to Aix-les-Bains. proving very successful one for Sergei Ivanov. There was a young Florent Brad coming in some 6 minutes and nearly 6.5 minutes down. Remember, he did a very good ride in the prologue time trial and held the young rider white jersey for a day or two. And well, the main peloton that you saw sprinting in came 24 seconds behind, but a large group coming in some 8.5 minutes in arrears. David Miller, Great Britain's rider for the Cofidis team, in that group somewhere, but he's no longer, I'm happy to say, the Lanterne Rouge. Sergei Ivanov then, the fourth Russian to win a stage, first since Yakimov 2 years ago.
This is just later, but I hope it's not last, because we have a very strong team like with Taki, Baldato, Tosato, Bailey. I think we can win more stages.
Oh, there's a confident Ivanov talking about winning more stages, and we wish him well. Next we turn our attentions to another man in the break, David Echavarria. What did he have to say about this three-man break on the road to Aix-les-Bains? He said, well, the break was very important for the team, the Euskaltel team. During the first week we weren't up to the front, but people were still happy with us apparently, but we weren't. Well, a very good morning from me, Mike Smith, to yet another hectic day in the saddle on this year's edition of the Tour de France. Today's stage is the 10th stage of this 2001 edition, the 88th Tour de France since it began way back in 1903. We've seen triumph and tragedy already on the roads, and we're scarcely halfway around France before we get to Paris and the Champs-Élysées a week on Sunday. Today's stage, well, it's the one that many followers of the Tour have been waiting for. It's one that many of the riders will fear. It goes from Aix-les-Bains and finishes up L'Alpe d'Huez. Yes, Alpe d'Huez is back on the schedule this year, and it's a very, very difficult stage indeed, because L'Alpe d'Huez is preceded by two other hors category climbs, out of category climbs, as we'll see in just a moment as we zoom in on the area where we are down in the southeast corner of France now, and wait until you see the profile coming up in just a second or two. There it is. Just over halfway through, they tackle the Col de la Madeleine. 3/4 of the way through, the Col du Glandon, and then right at the end, the awesome climb up to the top and the finish at L'Alpe d'Huez. Stuart O'Grady starts the day in the yellow jersey. He also holds the green points jersey as well, but today is going to be a severe test of his lead. There's confirmation of the margins that he has. Francois Simon, many people are saying he might well take over the yellow jersey come L'Alpe d'Huez finish this afternoon. De Groot, who was in the break two days ago that got the huge gap, he's in third place, and all the big names who should feature, one would imagine, on the podium or about the podium placings in Paris, all over half an hour down. There's Armstrong at 35.19, Ulrich at 35.46, Andres Kluden nearly 36 minutes, Roberto Heras on that mark as well. Well, there are the three jerseys at the start. The yellow jersey, Stuart O'Grady, and Eric Zabel, who's of course won the green jersey for his own 5 times, is currently wearing it for Stuart O'Grady. He's lying in second place in that competition. And of course, Patrice Algon is wearing the polka dot jersey. He's going to find himself severely tested if he wants to hang on to that jersey, because of course there are big points available on the 3 major climbs. There's also another third category climb a little bit earlier on, after just 40 kilometres, the Col du Frêne. But that's just a little appetizer for the big 3 to come later on. The Col de la Madeleine, the Col du Glandon and L'Alpe d'Huez. The weather conditions today, well, a little bit of sunshine at the start, as you can see our pictures coming live from Aix-les-Bains. The forecast is that there's a bit of cloud. There's a beautiful view of the Lac du Bourget, which is where Aix-les-Bains is. There's no rain expected, but a little bit more cloud towards the end of the stage. Temperatures around about 20 centigrade on the flat, but up to Alpe d'Huez it's going to be a little bit cooler. It's only going to be around 12 degrees centigrade up at the top of L'Alpe d'Huez, which is a little bit cool. Fortunately, only a slight wind, so conditions overall not too bad. Just those cool temperatures when we get to the top. If you're following the snake there, zooming around the place through Albertville, which hosted the Winter Olympic Games a few years ago, down the valley, and then of course the awesome finish. Oh well, that's Col de la Madeleine, forgive me, down the other side, and then we get to Glandon. There's the Col du Glandon, almost 2,000 metres, 6,500 feet. One more valley, and then they zoom off to the left and go straight up these many hairpins that lead to the top of L'Alpe d'Huez. And even in the middle of July, you see the snow on top of several of the mountains. This is alpine territory, folks. This is climber territory. Many riders are going to fear this stage. Well, we're bringing you the entire stage as we see the riders rolling out from the start in Aix-les-Bains. So stick with us here on Eurosport International and British Eurosport as we bring you live in its entirety stage 10 of this year's edition of the Tour de France. And we say hello, good morning and welcome to David Duffield and Sean Kelly.
Well, good morning, Mike, and good morning to everybody, wherever you might be. And it goes a long way, our Eurosport International coverage. And back in British Eurosport, we have Mark Robson too, with, I think, today Chris Boardman. And I'm using the word international too, although it's British Eurosport, many will be looking, because it is really an international gathering of people here on the Alpe d'Huez. As they're trundling out here, I can just sort of, I hope to put you in the picture about the atmosphere. It is unbelievable. We came up last night, they've been camping out overnight, the camper vans were there were people with their cars parked. Party time it was too last night. And we came up around the course, and there the Dutch, they make part of this course their territory. They call this the Dutch mountain, the La Montagne des Hollandais, and slightly the Italians too, because the Dutch and the Italians have dominated the Alpe d'Huez where we're going to finish today. 209 kilometres in all, that's 130 miles, this stage 10 of the Tour de France. Aix-les-Bains to Alpe d'Huez. The Alpe d'Huez climb is about 14 kilometres long, that's 9 miles in English money, and the record is held by none other than Mr. Pantani himself. The record 37 minutes and 35 seconds. Will that record go today? Well, we'll find out when we get to the end of it all. I think it's just a little bit faster than Mark Robson rode up with Chris Boardman a few weeks ago when they did that piece for British Eurosport preview of the Tour de France, but it's certainly going to be one with those back-breaking 3 oak category climbs that may cause a few problems for the yellow jersey at the moment. In fact, Sean Kelly, I understand that O'Grady is, I won't say relaxed about today and prepared to lose the yellow jersey, but I think he's not that keen to bust a gut.
Well, I don't think it's bust a gut, but I think he's kind of decided he's not going to hold the jersey today. He was talking yesterday, he said it was a very hard day. If he hadn't the jersey, he wouldn't have been in the first group, that he suffered a lot, the hardest day of the tour for him to this moment. So I think if he goes into the stage with that attitude, well, then he's definitely going to lose the jersey and certainly lose time on the first climb. If he's thinking in that way on the Madeleine, well, we will see him losing a lot of time. And there, if you go out there from the contenders, well, then you're going to lose a lot of time. And he seems to be saying, well, Simon is a much better climber than me.
Now then, Sean, we saw them at the start, and we'll come back to the international atmosphere and what's going on here with the people enjoying the sunshine. And it is reasonably warm at the moment in the sun, but it goes and going to be very cold. Looking at the profile today, and some of these riders have been over these mountains in the past, and you have too over the years. What's it like? Is there much apprehension for a day like today? I mean, this race has been very different all the way through. You've never been able to decide what's going to happen at any moment in time. But right now, they know what they've got to go over. Do you wake up in the morning and think, oh my goodness, look what lies ahead, or do you try and block it off?
Well, you just wake up and you've got to get to from A to B, and depending on what sort of a rider you are, of course, there's a lot of the sprinters here who are worried today about being dropped on the first climb on the Madeleine and trying to get inside the time limit. So that's a major problem for them to stay in the race. But for the big hitters like the Armstrong, the Ulrichs, for them it's not as bad. But there's always that little worry that you don't perform well on the day. You can have a little bit, if you're just a fraction off your best, well then you'll be caught out today, and that's the case for a lot of riders who are climbers also. But you just get in there and hopefully you're on a good day and do your best.
Well, bon anniversaire, it's their birthday today. What a way for Cursifu, who is a sprinter. Nico Martin, well, he'll get up the mountains, but he won't be up with the leaders, I don't think. He'll have to do quite a bit to help Kivilev, but Nico Martin will probably get them better than Cursifu, because it's birthday today, and he is one of the sprinters that Sean's just been talking about. He's already galloped and got himself a stage victory in the Tour this year. The other thing which as they're rolling out here, Sean, that I noticed when we're up in altitude is that even just coming up from the hotel now and dropping off our car and bringing our bags up here, the thin air, it's so much different, and you're breathing and you suddenly have to it's like that. Now for the sprinters, they don't have a chance maybe to train at altitude like this, where the specialist climbers do go to altitude, because Lance Armstrong's been riding most of these mountains. But in that altitude, how can you train for that, or do you just sort of take it as you come? If you're a sprinter, you just got to say, blow it, I'll do the best I can. But to me, it's a long busting day.
Yes, well, it's a long day, and the altitude does take effect when you get up to, over the 6,000 feet. Well, the air is thinner, but you don't really feel that as you're racing, as you're competing out in the stage like today. When you come here and hop out of a car and start running up to the commentary box, well, then you feel it immediately, of course. But when you get warmed up, but you do perform a little bit less when you get up in the altitude, that's sure. The sprinters, of course, if they're only at 1,000 feet, they still have problems when it's very, very steep and it goes fast. So a sprinter is always going to have a problem where the climbers will perform in the climbs, and the altitude will take a little bit fun. But everybody's the same. For Armstrong, for Ulrich, for Bortero, it's going to be the same situation.
Well, for all you out there then who are just switching on, you may be looking at your program, your coverage of Eurosport just before you may go out to work or whatever the case may be. But I do know that some people do take the DAF and do switch on and settle down and watch us all the way through. We'll try and put you in the picture about the racing, bring you some background stories too as well. We're going to be on air right the way through to the finish of the stage today. It is timed at what we call the average time, 32 kilometres an hour, to finish at 17:12 Central European time. That's 12 minutes past 5. So it's going to be there or thereabouts. So if you've got to nip out at all, come back. We're going to be full bore all the way through this tremendous day. And I mentioned earlier on how international it is too. As you came up here, all the different languages and the atmosphere here, it is undoubtedly, in my opinion, I don't know if anybody else can challenge this, it's the world's greatest free sporting show. All the way up this mountain, there are people that come here every time it's here, and they come across to the Alpe d'Huez. There's an atmosphere here which we don't find on any other mountain. Sean, it isn't the hardest mountain in the Tour de France, is it? But it's got some charisma about it. You've raced up it. What's it like coming up through the crowds?
Well, you just put your head down and you go like hell.
Yes.
And we see the crowds, they come onto the road before we get to the last 5 kilometres of the Alp. The road is there's no barrier, so the people just push onto the road, and there's just a funnel, and they just open as you come. They just step back a bit, and there's a lot of times there's photographers stand out taking a photograph, and they stay out for a fraction of a second longer, and you're just hoping that they will just hop back, because if they don't, well, you're just going to hit them, and you're hoping they will do that. But we've seen some accidents here on Alpe d'Huez a few years ago, and
that's the start of the race now. Ahead lies these great climbs, the Col de Madeleine, the Col de Glandon, and the final Alpe d'Huez, as they now 209 kilometres lie ahead as Jean-Marie Legrand has waved the flag. The race is underway. Well, at the early part of the race, it just climbs very gradually to the first third category climb of the Col de Fresnes, and they get to the top of that one quite early on in the race. They've only come about 41 kilometres when they get there. They drop down the other side into the valley, and the real heavy stuff, the hard ride, starts as they begin to approach the Col de Madeleine, and they'll have done something around about 90 kilometres by then, and then they come in quick succession, the big climbs. You go up one side, down the other, up one side, down the other, and up to the final finish. So it's at the back end of the race that we're going to see the action. Sean, with the early part here, those first 90 kilometres, do you see any real attempt to get away, or are we going to they're all going to sort themselves out when they get that first climb of the day? Or if you're maybe not a very good climber, is it a chance you say, well, let's get down the road and get a bit ahead of the race as far as we're concerned before we get the climb, or just sit softly?
No, I think definitely will be riders who will try and get down the road, and as we have to the first major climb, we have 87 kilometres before we get to the Madeleine, so there's guys going to try and get away and get a number of minutes ahead, because that way they can go the Madeleine and maybe the Glandon with a bit of an advantage, and it's not they don't have to worry about the time limit as much as if they'll stay in the bunch and they get dropped on the beginning of the Madeleine. So we will see attacks, and definitely I think the breaks have been succeeding. Yesterday those guys stayed away again, so those guys going to say, well, they're going to leave leave the guys who are a long ways down in general, they're going to leave them a bit of leeway, and they're going to hope to get up the road, and we will see attacks, I think, either not too far after the start.
Well, this big international crowd waiting at the finish. They've got a long time to wait, but they're enjoying themselves here. And of course, they'll have the cavalcade coming through with all the publicity wagons climbing up the mountainside. And this morning already, the music been blasting out. The man down there in charge of the music put out the Eagles Walk On By. Well, we've walked up this climb, and it is a fantastic atmosphere. If you ever want to come out to Tour de France and watch a stage of the race, and you want to come to the Alpe d'Huez, please do bear in mind, come up here the day before, because they've now closed the roads. You can't come up today right now. It's been closed since 8 o'clock this morning, and there you see the helicopters on the side. We have helicopters which go up as now we go and bring you the jerseys as they stand. O'Grady has got both the green and the yellow, and the polka dot jersey with Olgland, and the green jersey will be worn by Zabel today because O'Grady can't wear both jerseys. One of our helicopters is picking the pictures up for you now. The rest of the helicopters will go up there in the sky to bring you the race as it unfolds. And this general classification, a most unusual one there, with O'Grady ahead, Simon in second spot, 4 minutes 32 seconds, and that a great breakaway they had the other day. The group Krivolev, Tutenberg, all were in that leading group of riders who just blew the race apart at the seams, but they were the journeymen, I suppose you could say, of the race, and they got away. They had a 35-minute lead at the end of it all, but none of these chaps, I think, will expect to be in that position on general classification by the time we get to the end of the race today. They might be still there or thereabouts, but you're looking back down here, people like Bobby Juliet can climb well. Laurent Jalabert, well, he's suddenly had a renaissance this year, having already got a stage on the day of the Bastille Day. That was a great celebration. He's got number 11 there, 11th overall, 31 minutes and 57 seconds. But the battle will rage down here. Gonzalez, Galdiano, Balocchi, Sastre, Jaska, Morrow, Guterres, Serrano. We're coming down now to the specialist climbers. They may be far down there, but I think it was Stephen Rose that said he lost 40 minutes on the climb once on the Alpe d'Huez. So just shows this thing can completely change as we go toward the final climb of the day. But not only that, the wearing down process of the Col de Madeleine and the Col de Glandon means that the whole thing could change. Looking even further down the list here for you, there Lance Armstrong, 23rd overall, 35 minutes and 19 seconds, but you can compare that, you see, with Botero, 35 minutes and 37 seconds, Jan Ulrich down there in 35.47. This position could change. They weren't too bothered the other day when that breakaway went, because they're still having their own private battle. So you see people there, Cloden helps Ulrich, Harris is going to help Armstrong, and so the situation is that we could well see a big change there. Simon has already boasted he's going to take the jersey, or would like to take it at some point in time. And the other danger man, Sean, is Kivilev, isn't it? What about those two, Simon and Kivilev? How do you rate them?
Well, I think Kivilev is, he's a very good all-rounder. He can time trial, mountain time trial. He can do quite well. In the mountains, he's a good climber. So I think he did the best of that breakaway, the big breakaway the couple of days ago. I think he will hang in there longer than, for example, Simon. But I think Simon today, he could limit his losses because he's only 4:32 down on O'Grady, where Kivilev is quite a long ways down to over 22 minutes. So I think Simon will really give it more than 100% today, and he will try to get the jersey, and that's what he said. He thinks he's confident that he can take the jersey today.
A beautiful view then across the Alps, and thank goodness the clouds have lifted, because if the clouds come down too far, our helicopters can't fly. We saw them early on in our program sitting down there. Some of the helicopters you spotted on, they're not always the ones that bring you the pictures, but they are also there for the VIPs who want to come and see the race as well, because this race costs a lot of money to put on. I think it's something around about £10 million to put on this race, and of which £1 million goes towards the prize fund, split up across the teams and the riders. So today then is going to be a wonderful day for the people alongside the road, wonderful day for the VIPs, but not just a wonderful day for the riders who begin on this little drag to the first or the third category climbs. I keep mentioning how international this race is, but in reality the Dutch have made this their annual pilgrimage, because they've won the climb up the Alpe d'Huez in so many times in the past and got the stage. It was first used in 1952, and I expect this will come up in a graphic later on, and Mike Smith will take you through it, but I'll put it in early on in case some people come in and go out. In fact, we're repeating certain things as the race unfolds, because people were coming in, going out, maybe taking the kids to school, coming back and putting on the telly and so on. So if we repeat things, if you're with us all day, thanks for joining us. If you've got your nice bottle of wine in front of you, Be very careful early in the morning, otherwise you might fall off the chair before it's over and done with. Your bottle of wine, your cheese, your meal out there, make a big party of it, invite your friends round and see what's going to happen overall. But it was 1952 when they first put the road up for the ski station that Fausto Coppi, my great idol, won the stage on that particular occasion. And talk about 1952, by the way, we have been up here about an hour before we started, and a man came towards me and he got a British League of Racing Cyclists badge on his jersey, and I thought that's a familiar badge, and some people back in Britain will know the BLRC. Those of us who became members of it, I didn't join when you were going to be banned. The NCU and the BLRC got together. I joined when we were able to race under both codes, but to be a BLRC member, you're a bit of a rebel in those days, and they had the British League of Racing Cyclists would run and promote the first Tour of Britain. It was sponsored by the Daily Express, and then looking out the window today, there was Ken Russell, who won the Tour of Britain in 1952, the same year that Fausto Coppi came up to the top of the Alpe d'Huez to win the stage. In 1952, Ken Russell won the Tour of Britain. Many of you back at home will know Ken Russell's name, and he's here fit and well. He's 71 years of age. He rides his bike about 3 times a week, and it's great to talk to him. I've known his name for many years in the past, and now he's actually up here. I'll say the same time, 1952, he won the Tour of Britain. Fausto Coppi won this stage. He was the Italian who won that one. Then suddenly the Dutch started to take over. Zoetemelk in 1976, Kuiper in 1977, and then interesting enough in 1979, Zoetemelk won a game, and then they had another race up the Alpe d'Huez when Agostino won that one. And then in 1981, back came the Dutch with a bang, and Winnen won the stage. And then it changed to the Swiss rider Bate Brew, 1982. 83, Winnen came back and got it again. Then the Colombian Herrera got it in 84. Hino got it in 86. Xavi, the Spanish rider, in 87. And Rux, the Dutchman, came back and got it again in 88. Tunisia, his friend, the Dutchman, won it in 1989. Then we had the Italians coming back with Bugno in 1991, twice on the trot. The American Hampston won in 1992, and in 1994 the Italian Conti won, then the Italian Pantani won in 95, and again in 96, and Guarini won last year. So looking down that list, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times out of the 20 times we've been up to the top of the Alpe d'Huez. The Dutch have won that one, and the Italians 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times. Are they going to do it again? Oh, sorry, 7 times, because the Fausto Coppi too as well. So the interesting thing about those names is as you come up the 21 hairpin bends towards the top, they've got them numbered one by one. They start at 21 at the bottom, and it comes down and down and down until you get the last of the hairpin bends. And each of these bends is named after one of the riders that's won the mountain stage here at the Alpe d'Huez. So that's why you get lots of Dutch people out here and the Italians, but it really is an international gathering. And in our hotel, I bumped into a group of lads here who are from Jersey. They come across here, so I say how international it is. They're from the Caesarean CCC, and it was Liam, Peter, Dave and Steve, and they told me about the Ireland Games which took place in the Isle of Man just a couple of weeks ago, and every 2 years they hold the Ireland Games. It's limited to islands with a certain population. It goes to Guernsey in the year 2003. I've never heard of it before, but it's nice to hear about that, and Jersey topped the medal list this time in the Ireland Games, and they have about 20 or 30 islands take part in this particular sport, and I had another email from somebody mentioning that too as well. So nice to meet them all the way from the Channel Islands. They come every year to the Alpe d'Huez that it's here, and in fact many people come to the Tour de France and only ever come to when it is at the Alpe d'Huez. So Mike Smith's back there in Paris. Just make sure we're in contact with you. You know a lot about the Isle of Man, and you know a lot about Ken Russell. So that sort of woke up this morning, didn't it, eh?
Yes, Ken Russell, of course, just doesn't live very far from me, and I do bump into him quite often. He's always got a cheery smile. He's incredibly fit, even though he's now into his 70s. Still enjoys his cycling enormously, just like Brian Robinson, who we talked about a few days ago, David. Incidentally, the Island Games, I can tell you, they were inaugurated in 1985, and the first venue was my dearly beloved Isle of Man.
Yes, you're a hive of information, aren't you? I know that about it. Right then, so you're settling there, Mike, all ready to go throughout the day. Lots of statistics?
Lots of statistics to come, mostly, of course, mountain statistics, David. That won't be too surprising to you, I'm sure, because obviously this is a mountain day. We've got all kinds of interesting statistics involving not just L'Alpe d'Huez, but also the Col du Glandon and the Col de la Madeleine as well. So stay tuned.
And I suspect also a few of the old emails begin to stack up. So as they're trotting along here now, I will just look at one email here that popped in and ask Sean Kelly if he's got the answer, because I've certainly seen this bloke about the place. We've had one come in from Matthew Leake who says, can you tell me what Alvaro Pino, the ex-BH and team manager of the Calme team, is doing? And now then, Sean, what's he up to? I think he's over here for television. You've been speaking to him?
Yes, I've been speaking to him, and he's here with one of the with the radios. Actually, this is one of the Spanish radios. So of course, Pino, he was managing the Calme team for a number of years, but the last 2 years, I think it's Vincent Belda who took it over. But Pino's here with the I'm sure it's one of the Spanish radio stations. Is he coming back into management? I saw him talking to him. Any rumours he coming back with the team, or is he going to stay with the radio? Do you know? No, I didn't hear of any rumour that he's going back with the team. But I would think that if the opportunity arose, he definitely would go back, because when he was director, I think he enjoyed it a lot. But I think with the direction of the Calme team, he had some problems, and then he was let go from the director's job.
Well, they've talked about the Calme team yesterday. They did 22 years they seem to have been sponsoring the cycle racing team. What about the prospects of their riders, in particular Botero?
Well, I think we're coming into their terrain really. Although they have some all-rounders as well, but they have quite a good number of climbers. And Botero, I think he said that he's not going after the mountain prize this year. He's concentrating on a place in the podium. So I think we will see him in the next couple of days trying to make up very, very active and trying to make up some time, because he needs to do that before the time trials. He needs to take a bit of time from the other guys who are looking at the podium.
Well, not unexpectedly, the group rolling along here after that start. You can see on the right-hand side the pink and blue colours of the fact they moved the camera now, so I start on that one. And we just saw the colours of Dixon, the rider who went away in the break the other day, driving it hard. I think it's not going to be actually his cup of tea today. I don't feel somehow that the pink and blue colours of the Lamprey-Daikin team, that they are going to produce any of the drama today, because they haven't really got what I call a tremendously strong mountain climbing team. Of course, they've been in the Tour of Italy, and Simoni won the Tour of Italy in those colours. In fact, of course, he took on the pink as the overall race leader, but certainly they put all their effort into the Tour of Italy, and there are very few riders. Now off goes the orange jersey. I might have thought they were going to see something with Escatel. You never know with these chaps. They're always prepared to have a go, and down the road they go. Escatel Escudi team, David Echeverria was in the break yesterday. He didn't get the stage victory he's looking for, but he's an extremely good climber indeed, and this is one of his team. This is Castasana, who is also a useful climber. So watch out for the orange jerseys today. I think they're going to be all over them. And this is, I think, Bettini's going up to him as well. And yes, they're now starting to move quite early in the race, but there they go. That's Bettini. Now, Mappe have done next to nothing in this race so far, Sean. Do you think this is one day when the team managers say, unless you get out there and get stuck in with early break, we're going to give you a right slap around the wrist?
Well, I think, yes, the Mappe, they've got to do something, and we haven't seen any results from them as yet. But Bettini, we see him yesterday, he was active in the final, so I think he's feeling good, and I think he would be allowed maybe to get away in a breakaway, and if he does that, he could win a stage, because he's a pretty good climber, not as good as the big hitters, let's say, but if he can get away in a group, well then he could very possibly pull off the stage.
And it's now spread the field out considerably. They've come here, Mappe, with Garzelli as their main hope. He won the Tour of Italy last year, and they recruited him for the Tour to do well this year, and he's done nothing in this race so far. He's right down, but this is the day when he might start to come through, and so we're now beginning to see some of the riders having a go. I think that's Rooks trying to match the attempt of the rider from the Escatel Escudi team, Castrastano, to go away down here, so it's already started to sort things out. We were talking earlier on our programme, and sometimes you'll hear it, sometimes you won't in the edited version, about Alvaro Pino, who was with the Calme team, another of these famous Spanish climbers as well. In 1986 he won the Tour of Spain, 1987 the Tour of Catalonia, the Circuit of Montjuic, and so he's got quite a useful career behind him before he took to managing teams. So I hope that answers Matthew Leake's question about Alvaro Pino. What's he up to now? Working with radio as he is now, but I can't really, Matthew, put you in the picture much about Evenji Berzin. He seems to have disappeared off the face of the land. He, to me, had enormous talent, and he eventually just seemed to just had lost enthusiasm, and he seemed to race just on that talent, and he's now dropped out of the scene. We haven't seen anything of him for about a couple of years now, I suppose. I think he got involved in some Fiat agencies, the motorcar manufacturer who provides the cars for the Tour de France. I think somehow he's involved in the Fiat agency now and probably gone to his business interest rather than cycling. A lot of people try and stay in the cycle sport when they finish being a top rider, but there's not enough space for all of the riders who wish to move into television or radio or journalism or into the sport, other than to occasionally pop up, as we do have in the big races, as an assistant on that particular occasion, driving a car or looking after VIPs or whatever the case may be. As you retire, there isn't an open door for you suddenly to go into team management or something connected with cycling, but people do pop up occasionally from time to time in a major event. But Berzin is one of those many riders who's just disappeared off the face of the earth. So sorry, Matthew, I can't help you any more on that as regards Matthew Berzin, but certainly I hope the comments about Pino satisfies your email. Right, so the thing is stringing out now, and there they go. Is this going to sort of all come back together, Sean, or you were looking about little groups going away? Are they going to really start doing that now, or are they going to sit up a bit?
No, they'll definitely really see these three, but they're definitely going to break it up, and the peloton or the bunches is splitting there. We see it on the helicopter shot that there's breaks appear in the bunch. So when they start in the attacks, I think most of the time it goes on from there. You have guys, if this group is taken back, then there's other guys who try to get away. And as we see these three guys, we have Jimenez from Banesto and Roux from the French rider. So I think we will see a lot of attacks, and definitely they're going to try and create a gap and get a good advantage before they really get into the bigger climbs. Interesting today to see that the riders have started out with short sleeves. They haven't got any arm warmers. I think it's one of the first times since the start of the tour that they've started out like this.
Yeah, you're right, because we had a pretty miserable race, haven't we, so far? It's been cold and damp and raining, and the other day they rode all the way through, and they never had any time when it wasn't raining. So let's hope it certainly looks nice and clear here. We can see that the sky is blue and the little clouds are white, wispy ones. They're not the nasty black ones we've been having so far, but just getting the position of the peloton going through now, and confirming then that they start off this morning at 10:41, and they feel we're all together. They're also heading up today, not only to this famous finish at the Alpe d'Huez, but we're going over the top of the summit of the Col de Madeleine at 2,000 metres above sea level. That's over 600 feet, and they're going to have there the Souvenir Henri de Grange, and that will be for the first rider over the top of the Madeleine. Souvenir Henri de Grange was the man who really invented the Tour de France, and for many years the yellow jersey had his initials HD on it, Henri de Grange, in memory of the man who was the first man to think of the Tour de France, and then was very much the activator behind it since 1903, and they have a souvenir to remember him in that particular climate of the Col de Madeleine. So Oaks and Bettini, Towler, Jimenez, all starting to break the thing up now. There, look in the distance at those wispy clouds. Here they go. Well, coming over the headphones now, they're asking the motorcycle men to move forward a bit, and look at that string. And up front, look at that too. It seems to be very broken, Sean. Look at this. There's a real mixture of teams. That nobody's sort of sitting on the front trying to control it. There's a real sort of mishmash of riders up there. There don't seem to be one team trying to sit on it.
Well, the problem is when you have not got one of the big favourites with the yellow jersey, well then you don't have them control the race, and we've seen that the day of the big breakaway, it was left to the US posters and the telecoms, and they didn't want to do the chasing because they said, we haven't got the yellow jersey. Why should we do the chasing? There's a lot of teams who haven't won anything in it. There's a lot of teams here who haven't got anybody in that 14-man group that day, and they should do the chasing, the sprinter teams, and it was the Mapei was referred to quite a lot because they hadn't got no rider up in that group. And it's the same situation today. The credit Adric guys, they're not going to control the race because O'Grady is more than likely going to lose a lot of time. So it's a bit it's uncontrolled really. So there's the opportunity for guys to get away in breaks, and that's definitely the idea of a lot of riders, to get away in a break and get a good adventure before they really get into the big climbs.
Is it fair to say, apart from Ulrich and Armstrong, who are the two-horse race, because at the moment they're a bit off the pace, but they're racing virtually for the podium in Paris, is it true to say that some of these climbers like Balocchi, for instance, that you can't work to control it, so he's every man for himself from the little climbers, and therefore there's a race within the race today at the moment?
Well, Balocchi, of course, he's a guy possible for the podium, and I think he's kind of, that's what he's riding for. That's his objective, to get onto the podium in Paris. I see the interviews with him, and he talks, just to stay with Ulrich and Armstrong as long as possible. So he's kind of throwing the towel as such to go on the attack. He just wants to follow the Ulrichs and Armstrong, and just hopefully to get on the podium in Paris. I think there's a lot of riders with that idea.
I suppose a lot of riders too, Sean, are just going to say, well, I hope I can survive and get to Paris, because we have the numbers dropping off one by one as the race takes its course, with the riders getting either sick or falling off. It must be just a tremendous atmosphere to get to Paris, and some of these riders in the race for the first time. We have got this year in the Tour de France a lot more riders who are riding it for the first time. Many of the past stars, they're not actually past it, but they weren't selected this time. And if you haven't caught up with what happened at the selection process of the Tour de France, they had a wildcard selection when originally they were going to pick up 4 different teams to join up with the top teams already been selected. And the amazing thing was that the organisers went and picked not 4 but 5, and they went very heavily biased towards the French, and they have now, or we had at the start of the race, 35 French riders in the race last year, and we've got 51 riders who are in the race this year from France, and that has increased the percentage of French riders in the race. And of those, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, about 17 riders of those who've never ridden the Tour de France before. Now, we've come here with our cameras to show you where they're going to finish up at the top of this climb, and there's the snow up on these glorious Alps, and fortunately the wind isn't drifting down off the top, because sometimes the wind comes off that snow. It can be quite chilly. And here's the microlight man zooming round. He's popped up. Don't swat your television screen. It's not a midget on the front of your screen or anything flying past a fly. That is the cameras picking up the activity above the finish line here. In fact, one of those microlights has been going around with a banner on there advertising some product for the hundreds of thousands of people that are here. In fact, there's no hotel accommodation here tonight. There was very little accommodation last night, and every available space to park a car, a van, a tent on the climb up toward the top of the Alpe d'Huez was taken yesterday, long before the people had come out looking for places to settle in. They discovered that about midday most of the best places had been taken, and by last night you had to get in somewhere. No, not again. This is Bettini's waving his arms. It's typical Bartoli tactics, this is. Or is that Bartoli? Hang on. Can't be. What's happening back there?
I think it's Bettini. But this group, there's a group of about 15 riders who have got ahead of the bunch here. Of course, we have the 3 leaders who are at 22 seconds, but in this group, I think Vinjocroft is injured as well. So the Telecom guys are going to, the Telecom team are going to put riders down the road. Like of Vinjocroft, he's a perfect one, and they can send him up the road. But looking back at yesterday, Hamilton has had a bad day yesterday. He seemed to be sick, and he arrived in very, very late with 13 minutes down. So he's a guy who Armstrong could miss in the mountains if he's not recovered. He seems to have a stomach bug.
And didn't Harris have some troubles too earlier on in the race?
Well, Harris, yes, he was suffering with a knee. He had a tendonitis, and also he crashed in the team time trial with Van der Velde. Van der Velde, who crashed 2 days ago, and he broke his wrist. So another one for Armstrong, which he's going to miss from the team, because he would be the guy today. He would look after Armstrong for the first half of the stage, probably to the first climb, the Madeleine. He would get up a long ways in the Madeleine, and then it would his job would be done. So Lance is going to certainly miss him over the next couple of days.
So are the cracks appearing in the mighty US Postal team, Sean? Is this just your speculation on my part? Because I've already said Armstrong won't win this year. I've no doubt my American friends will give me a sharp cuff around the ear for that, but I felt somehow that Ulrich looked very lean at the start of the race this year, rather than his usual Humpty Dumpty self, and that I think was due to the fact he rode the Tour of Italy. It certainly slimmed him down, and he had an aurora about him, I thought, of determination that he would do better than his previous years, because in reality he has, looking back, a tremendous reputation in this race, because Ulrich won it in 1997, and since then he's been back there 3 times in second spot anyway. So we're going to have an interesting battle within a battle here, and the misfortune that's hit the US Postal team with Heras suffering a bit earlier on and Hamilton yesterday may have put cracks in the armour, but you never know. We'll have to wait and see what happens today. Well, 55 seconds, 55 secondes for the trois hommes de tête. So here we've got the 3 men leading at the moment, and the long gangling chap from the Kelme team just sitting on the back here as they're going away. That's Towler. He's had a bit of a go a few days ago, so he's prepared to have a go, but he's a bit tall, lanky chap. They're probably the best rider in this group, Lawrence Rooks. He's got a lot of experience for the Gela Tour team, and Jimenez from Banesto, not the other Jimenez, but he's also pretty useful. But I think of this lot, the Lawrence Rooks is probably the most experienced rider, and there's confirmation the gap is 55 seconds. If you're at home, and I know that many people do say, right, I'm going to watch the Tour all the way through today, and you've got your maps out there, and you can see Aix-les-Bains, and you probably won't be able to see the Outdoors on there, and you're saying, well, where the heck are they going? Let me just give you a rough route of the race today, so you can mark it on your old school atlas, because we set off from Aix-les-Bains and then went a little bit north and curled round, and if you can see Chambry, which you certainly will be on your map, find Chambry, we're coming round to circuit round Chambry, and then which is on the course is going to be on the east side of Chambry, and you can see Abertaville up there on your map as well. So it sort of curls round near to Chambry and goes back up towards Abertaville. And after Abertaville, it swings round and goes down in a generally south-westerly direction from Abertaville, right the way down to a place called Bourg-Boisemont. You won't, I think, be able to see on your atlas the Alpe d'Huez, but you should be able to see Bourg-Boisemont, and that is almost due southeast of Grenoble. So if you look to Grenoble, look down to the southeast from there, and you should see Le Bourg-Boisemont. They're going to come at that from the sort of northeasterly direction, and then we curl up towards the top of the climb. That's the sort of route, the general route they're taking today through the delightful Alps. So here, this is the rolling part with the wooded hills here. When we get further really, because up at the top of the climbs here it begins to slim out somewhat, and you'll find the very barren countryside. If you've not seen it before, it's very spectacular. Sometimes our helicopters are picking it up, but coming through here in towards the first climb of the day, which will be there up the top, and this is after 95 kilometres. It is going all the way up to the Col de Madeleine for the Arne de Grange souvenir. A 24-kilometre climb, by the way. That's 15 miles of climbing, and the average is 6.3%. That's what lies ahead of these riders here, and they really are galloping a bit. Sean, would you expect them to go quite as early as this?
Well, they are going very, very fast considering what's out ahead, but I think they're just trying to create a gap, and it's just gone over the 1 minute now. They want to get a gap where they're pretty sure of staying away, and then they're just building on slowly from here on. So you have to go full 1:15 at the moment. You have to go full out for a number of kilometres, and then when you get the gap, you steady it down, and hopefully the bunch will steady down also. And from that point, you just try and build your advantage all the time, and it will depend then what way in general these guys are positioned, and that will determine what way they will react to the bunch.
Well, that's routes on your screen now at the moment in this breakaway group. Tollett is in the green shorts for the Calme team, and Jimenez for Benesto going away up into the distance. We have those beautiful shots of the countryside here. It's not quite as conky as it is further down here, and I think by now all the wild animals have disappeared into the distance to get away from the noise, because ahead of this race going through was the cavalcade with all the horns blowing, the music playing, and the general cacophony that is the preceding fun of the fair as far as the Tour de France is concerned, and no doubt frightened the pants off the wild animals. It's an amazing part of the world. You probably saw that early shot there, because around this part of the world, in the Jura and the Alps there's more of these national parks than any other part of France, and so they are looking after the wildlife, looking after the countryside here too, and you can come out here. I don't suppose you'll be able to see them at all, but we get all sorts of lovely old species, little alpine shrews and the polecats, the weasels, and lots of the lowlands and sort of wild animals. In fact, there's boars too down there, but they're in the midst of the forest now. They're hiding away from the Tour de France, but it's a lovely part of the world. And also, if we saw the little whizzes going up in the sky, one of these microlights, that must have frightened the pants off the kestrels and the buzzards and all these famous alpine birds here, the alpine chough and so on. They're all up. It's a lovely part of the world, and many of the people here on holiday in the Alpe d'Huez and many of the ski resorts, they come here. And if you've never done it before, I mean, many of you perhaps go skiing in the winter here, but come up in the summer and you can actually hire bikes and go mountain bike riding over the tops. You can go pony trekking or just walking across the mountains. It's a lovely clear air. It's sort of air that we don't get back in Great Britain. Even if you go up to the top of Snowdon, it's not the same as being in this beautiful clear air that they have up here. Nice food too, nice wines, nice comfort lamps. Good way to spend your holidays, providing the weather is like it is today. If it gets the low cloud down, then it can be a bit miserable as well, because there's nothing else to do. Well, you can go skating, by the way. There we are. Oh, the birds quite on. Now then, Phil Liggett will know whether this is a buzzard or a kestrel or whatever the case may be. That's great. That's great. The reason I mentioned Phil Liggett, by the way, was doing some commentary for one of the American channels. He started life as a zookeeper up at Chester Zoo, and Phil has a great interest in birds. I only know a bit about them. No, not the two-legged sort, Sean. Stop looking at me like that. So the birds, he can always, Phil, identify the birds. And I remember one day on the tour of Britain, the milk race, we were going up a valley. I think it was a red kite or something, and out over the race radio came this Phil Liggett telling us what the bird he'd just seen. Evidently it was a bird that was not normally spotted, and so he had to tell us all. I suppose all the twitchers there jotted in their little book. Anyway, coming up through here, we've surprised one bird, and all the rest of the wildlife now just wondering what the hell's hit them on this stage then. Ayla bound to Alpe d'Huez, 209 kilometres, 130 miles, stage 10. If you just come in and bunged on your telly, you've probably taken, what time is it now back in Great Britain? It must be 10:30. So you've taken the kids to school and done a bit of shopping on the way back, and flipping the channels back before you do the hoovering. I'm here talking, I was going to say, about the ladies of the house, but certainly I know there are men doing that as well now. We're all sharing things together. This is Eurosport's coverage of the Tour de France. We're here all day on this stage 10 from Ayla bound to Alpe d'Huez, and we'll be finishing about 5:15, that's Central European time, 4:15 for you people back in Great Britain. The pack here is beginning to slow down a little bit. You can see them sort of bunched on that hairpin bend, because the breakaway group of 3 riders now are up there. And what's the latest lead, Sean?
Well, the 3 leaders have got 2 minutes of a gap, so it's increasing all the time. And as you said, the bunch are they're grouping a bit, so it shows that it's slowing a bit. And these guys in general, of course, they're a long ways down. The best one is Talbot, he's 79th at 54 minutes, and Roux is 94th at an hour down, and Jimenez is he's 113th at 108, so nobody in the general of any danger. So they will, they'll be allowed to take an advantage, and nobody's going to really get concerned about for the general classement.
Well, if again you said earlier on, just a few minutes ago, if you're just zapping channels and watching Eurosport's coverage of cycling, not having followed it before, Sean Kelly here, 4 times winner of the green points jersey. That's points accumulated when they cross the line at the end of each stage, and also intermediately we have some sprints where you can collect points for that one as well. Today, well, there's not going to be people like O'Grady. I think is it perhaps at Abertaville, if he can get the thing back together. The points in the intermediate sprints only go down for the first 3 places, 6, 4 and 2. At Abertaville, the famous Olympic ski resort, that will be after they've covered 68 kilometres, 140 to go, and it may be that O'Grady might come back at it at that particular point, but generally speaking, this is where some of the mountain goats will collect points in the points competition, and Sean had that jersey in that competition 4 times. Going through now Le Pont, 21 kilometres. Well, it's just a lovely day, and with those 3 men down the road, then certainly those initial points in the competition, if they stay like that, will go. Sean, here on the Tour de France all the way through, it's first time sort of 7 hours in the saddle here, because if you've just switched on your television and wonder what's going on, it's going to be an awful long day in the saddle. And Sean, any predictions for today, the likely winner of the stage today? I've got my own feelings. Would you like to stick your neck out? Because so many times in the race so far you've made a prediction and it's come right, so I don't know if the book is going to take any odds today on who's going to win the stage, but who would you pick?
Well, I think it's going to be a climber today, and Bottero is probably a very strong one for today. I think he'd be my choice, but Armstrong, I think we will see him very active, and Ulrich, of course. Armstrong, he actually said that, he said, he've lost the Tour, he said, actually, in one of the interviews, but he said, today, we start the next 5 days are very difficult, and he said, today is the day when I attack. So, if he does what he said he's going to do, and when he attacks, it's not going to be when, at an easy moment, it's going to be when the race is very hard, when everybody is suffering. Well, then, that's the time we'll see Lance attacking, and if he does do that, well, it will really blow the race to pieces, and we could anybody that suffering a bit, we will see them being cut out and proven at that moment.
Well, they're talking about Lance Armstrong, winner of this race last year and the year before. That will make a hat-trick if he does it this year, so there's question marks over him. Yeah, I actually selected Bottero too myself, Sean. I didn't look at your little notes here, but I thought Bottero could be a man to go for it today, so at least you and I today are in unison. That means we can both be wrong rather than one getting wrong and one getting right. Sean has had very great experience in this race, and also his work was on Eurosport in the Classics and the Paris-Nice, which we've been bringing to you on Eurosport for the last couple of years too, and he won the Paris-Nice. Was it 7 times, Sean?
Yes, 7.
7 times Paris-Nice. Gosh, that's the start of the season. I actually dropped Sean off after the end of the Paris-Nice today, having heard his piece that he did to camera, and he was standing there with because it's called the Race to the Sun, and there he was standing in Nice on the Promenade des Anglais with the cameras for the piece, for the programme, and there behind him was the glorious Mediterranean Sea. We'd spent, 7 or 8 days coming down with the race, and he said he closed the programme saying, but now we're all going for a swim. Well, in fact, we didn't, Sean. I took you to the airport. I don't know if you noticed, but as we went to the airport at Nice, we drove the car onto this big banner, and it's got the section there, because there's some people who want to stay some time and drop off their baggage, and the other one says it was underneath a section marked Kiss and Fly. Well, I can assure ladies and gentlemen, it does exist. There is a place, Kiss and Fly. It means you just pull the cart very quickly, they jump out with the bags, and after I didn't kiss Sean goodbye on that occasion. No way. Anyway, he's giving us the benefit of experience in this race. How many times did you actually ride, and how many times did you finish, Sean, the Tour de France?
14 times I rode, actually. I was asked that question the other day, and I didn't get the question really. I wasn't sure was how many times did I finish or how many times did I ride, but actually I rode 14 times and I finished 12.
What was it like when you didn't finish? I think you sort of crashed out. Do you feel at the end of it all sort of sorrow? What was it like when you don't finish?
Well, it depends on what way you do not finish. If you're going through a bad time, you're empty, as they say, and you just cannot continue anymore. Well, then there's no point in going on, because there's nothing you can do. But if you go out because of a crash, which I did on one occasion, I was riding quite well. I felt quite good. I had been out in the beginning of the season, and I went out that way, and that is very disappointing, because you put a lot to come back, first of all, after your injury or whatever in the beginning of season, and I had done that, and I felt in very good shape, and I was riding quite well and very confident for the rest of the tour. And I actually were riding along, and I was talking with Stephen Roach, and there was a crash, and I just wasn't alert at 100%, and I just came down. But we're riding very slowly. We're only riding at about 25 k's an hour, and I pulled ligaments in my shoulder, and that was the end of that tour for me, and very disappointing. And of course, then the other time with the PDM team, we got sick, and we all had to pull out.
Yeah, I remember that. That was awful. That was a great disappointment, because you can get sick in this event, can't you? The food that you eat. See, people don't realise the stress to the body, and also that you're eating abnormally for 3 weeks, aren't you? And if you ride just a single day classic and then you go back and eat normal food, this race, day in, day out, I suppose you might get sick and fed up of pastas and spaghettis and so on. But from time to time, mostly it's a monotonous diet, but you must get fed up sometimes with virtually the same old food.
Yes, well, the food is, it's very limited, the choice of food in the Tour of France, because, it's your normal diet is chicken, maybe fish or red meat, but and your vegetables and your pastas, but you don't get a great variety. And then a lot of the fresh creams, ice creams, greasy foods, those are all out, because they can upset the stomach very easy. And when you're at your fittest, well, then you're very delicate and very open to getting some sort of a stomach bug. So you have to be very careful, and that's why the diet is very limited. But on the Tour of France, we were, it was with the doctor, and we were taking a liquid food, which was our problem. That's why we all went out of the Tour of France that year.
Yeah, I remember when it happened, and people were speculating about the thing, and I said to some of my colleagues that you can these special liquid food. I used to take a thing called Complan, and that was liquid food they used to give to people in hospital, which was easily digest, because your stomach, if you wanted to digest things, then those are liquid foods, are very good. But it said on the label there you had to eat it within 3 days or something, and keep it in a fridge, otherwise it would go off. And with the heat sometimes that the races go on now, I can understand the food goes off. And also in the hotels over the years, there have been certain sickness problems with the hotel food, but now many of the teams are bringing their own chefs with them. I know particularly that the US Postal have got a man who actually, if memory serves me correctly, he's a steward or a person, one of the top brass on an aircraft, and he got to speak, I think it was with Lance Armstrong, and he was a great chef too as well, and he then volunteered to be the chef for the US Postal team on the Tour de France, and maybe one or two other races too. So he basically takes his holiday, and he brings along with him and of course every rider has a different requirement, and the US Postal team have got a great interest in cereals, and they all have a different cereal, and all these boxes are lined up in the morning for them to have with their breakfast, and they've all got their special whims and fancies, and you have to cater for these two. But that's when they bring their own chef along, which seems to be a very sensible thing. And before the race comes into those particular hotels, they